Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're so privileged today to be together here. We've got Shawn Burke, myself, Dr. Lee Ostler in Washington. Shawn's also, you're in northern Idaho, aren't you? That's almost Washington, but
Yeah, we're neighbors.
yeah, we're neighbors. And we're so privileged today to be joined by Scott Aldred. He is the president and chief operating officer for the company that we're all associated with, Asea. And we're going to have a discussion today about the story of athletics or athletes using redox signaling molecules. And so we thought we would get together and maybe answer some of the questions that everybody's been asking us, certainly, and maybe many that Scott knows is out there that we haven't heard of yet. But we kind of want to drill into a little bit of the science. We want to discuss why athletic performance is a big deal, and it involves this whole redox pathway system that Asea is a part of. And so I'd like to welcome Shawn and Scott. Maybe we could just toss it to each of you, Shawn first, and then Scott, and you can kind of say your little piece, and then we can start discussing kind of where Asea is in this arena of athletic performance.
Well, thanks for having me, Lee. I would say I've been using this product for over 12 years in the athletic performance aspect of it. I mean, I've been an athlete all my life, but 12 years ago, I discovered redox molecules. And as an athlete, it literally changed my life where I thought that my athletic career was over. And lo and behold, I'm actually heading out for a race soon, so I'm done with this call to race my 7th race of this year. And I'm still going good and going strong, and actually have raced all my races this year. I've actually did my personal best in every race I've done this year. And that's the first time in the 12 years of being on the product that I've done that. So it's definitely, at 62 years old, I'm still getting faster and more.
What race is it, by the way? Where are you going?
I'm doing a triathlon tomorrow. It's up at Priest Lake. It consists of a swim, bike, and run. And yeah, it'll be fast and furious. So I'm ready for it.
I'll bet. Scott?
Well, I'm just happy to be on the same call as an athlete like Shawn. My experience with Asea over the years has been more as you get older, you slow down a little bit. Shawn doesn't, but I do. It's really about recovery and sleep that's needed, and just to keep us moving. I think that's the big thing, is continue to work out, get your good exercise, get good sleep, have proper nutrition. But really over the years I've seen, just not with myself, but had a lot of great stories. I actually just had lunch today with my cousin, and he's training for the Lotaja race, which is a Logan, Utah to Jackson Hole, Wyoming bike race. And that is 200 miles. And it's interesting, as he's been going through his training, that the first thing he wants to do as he's getting to the end is he needed some Asea. And he said, "Hey, tell me more about your product." And he knows about it. But he's getting up there in age where you just can't carry it just based on your performance. You need a little bit of help. And so we went through some things today, and he'll be starting Asea today as he prepares the last 2 weeks, getting ready for this big race for him. So it's great that people come to us and ask us about that. I'm sure Shawn gets lots of questions about it. I do have a funny story about Shawn we'll start with. Is a couple years ago, it's 3 years ago, I think, we were in Ecuador on a service project, and we were mixing cement all day. And Shawn he just would not stop working. And my wife came over to me and she said, "You don't have to keep up with Shawn. You're older than him." Well, Shawn's actually, 6 years older than I am. So, Shawn, good powered by Asea, and good on you. I love this guy, and he's quite an athlete.
Well, the two of you kind of at the present time represent, in my view, almost polar opposites of the athletic world. Scott, you're a weightlifter, and Shawn is more of an aerobic, endurance triathlete, marathoner. Could each of you just take a moment and give your thoughts on, especially from an athlete's perspective, on how what we have with redox signaling molecules applies to your respective areas of interest?
So with me being an endurance athlete, it's all about recovery for me. It's, the big key is that I need to have quality workouts on a regular basis. I can't go out and do a long bike ride or a long run and then take 3 or 4 days to recover. I have to be able to do that on a constant basis. And that's what the big thing for me as an endurance athlete. I work more with slow twitch fibers instead of fast twitch, meaning that I need to go longer, harder, and faster. And that was the big difference with me. Before getting on the product, when I was 50 years old, I was basically tanking out. I would go out and work out and then take 3 or 4 days to recover and then try to catch up with the time I missed from quality workouts. And that's hard mentally on me. And it's hard to have that confidence that when you go into a race that you're prepared for it. I always felt like I was playing catch up all the time. And since being on the product, I'm not doing that anymore. I mean, I work out 7 days a week. In fact, I just have a Fitbit watch, and my goal was to work out for 365 days in a row. And I was able to do that. I never took a day off. I mean, there was hard days and easy days, but I can't at 50 years old, 12 years ago, I wasn't able to do that. I mean, it was recovery, workout, recovery, workout, recovery. And when I got on the product, that all changed for me. And when you have that confidence in your training, that's another level of competition that when you go to the starting line that a lot of people don't have. And so when you put in the time and the effort to work out, to prepare for a race or an event, that's a big confidence. And then also knowing that I was sleeping better, so my recovery was better, my endurance was better, and I that factor is using free fatty acids for fuel and sparing the muscle glycogen. Before, my eating habits weren't as good. I was trying to do a lot of carb loading to get ready for races, actually liquid carb loading, and that wasn't going good with me either. And so the switch just turned on. I mean, it took after about six weeks of being on the product, things just started changing. And that was what really got me interested. And being in the medical field, being a physical therapist for many years, that scientific part of it really started intriguing me. And that's what really got me confident in what is redox molecules, how's it working with the athletic body. And then it's just been a game changer for me. So for an endurance athlete, I think that they're missing the boat. Sometimes you don't want to tell everybody your secret, but I wear Asea proudly every race I do. And I, not just because, the president of the company is on this call, but I'm very proud to wear an Asea outfit every time I race. I know what it's done for me, and I know what the company's doing for everybody else out there.
Thanks, Shawn. Scott, I wouldn't call weightlifting aerobic. I would look at it as anaerobic. So maybe I'm off base, but would you chime in and make the application of why Asea could be beneficial to those doing what you do?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's important to do the exercise that you like and that fits your body type. Obviously, with me weighing 225 pounds, sometimes more than that, but to be an endurance athlete's not really fit for my body type. So a long bike ride for me is 15 miles, and that's just a warm up for somebody like Shawn. And so doing the exercise that fits your body type and doing different types of exercises is usually what's best. Do something that you like and that's fun. For me, lifting weights is something that's fun. It's something I enjoy doing. But it's just part of the routine. I also do a fair amount of cardio training and yoga, some other different things, just to holistically look at it. Because especially as we get older, the biggest thing is to stay fit enough so that we can enjoy our life. We get to a financial part of our life where that's not the big stress part of our life, and we want to be able to travel and do things with our children, our grandchildren, and those type of things. So for me, it's been I'm like Shawn. I'm a 6 day a week workout person, and to have that kind of recovery is really amazing. Because the biggest thing as we get older, it's the muscle recovery. And it's the ability to stay consistent with your workouts and not get injured. And that's really the point, is don't push it so hard that you get injured. Listen to your body, shut it down when you need to, but stay consistent. And I've just found personally with myself is staying consistent on the product has worked very well, and it allowed us to do that and have a lot of fun. And it doesn't mean that you're Superman or bulletproof. It just means that you need to take it easy sometimes, like Shawn talked about. There's heavy days, there's light days. Listen to your body. And the thing I really enjoy about Asea is you can adjust the dose. So if you've had a really strenuous workout, you might want to take an extra dose. And that's what you can do, especially maybe you're coming off a race like Shawn, or heavy workout like myself. And so you do have that ability. But for me, it's been same experience, similar experience as Shawn, is that even though it's totally different type of training, any kind of athlete can benefit. And you don't even have to be a serious athlete. That's the best part, is it could just be you did too much over the weekend and you need a little boost and help with your recovery. But the biggest thing is to stay consistent on the product. Take it the same time every day, and also use it day after day, because it does have a cumulative effect.
Let's talk about the science. You know, both of you have been talking about this word called recovery, and I'm sure there's going to be some athletes, some very experienced athletes who understand that very well, who are going to be watching this and maybe wondering, well, what's so different? You know, Shawn, you talked about your pre-Asea day and then after you started Asea, and you noticed the difference in recovery. So let's get into the science and maybe just a bit and explain why that matters and why this isn't just another gimmick, you know, that maybe is in the marketplace. What's going on here that makes redox signaling molecules have this effect on our muscles and our athletic performance?
Well, for me, it's the muscle soreness. And when I started looking at what redox molecules do, that they detect, repair, and replace damaged cells, that was like, that's it. That's why I'm not sore anymore. And so that recovery of not being sore day after day, because usually if you do a long workout, the recovery days, the next 3 or 4 days, you can't move, you're stiff, you're sore, you can't perform. And so that is a discouragement for athletes. So when you're able to work out and not have that soreness, what I realized by doing the studying of it was, or studying redox molecules was, you know, the detect, repair, and replace of damaged cells. And athletes damage their cells every single day. There's no way around it. So if you go out and run, you're going to damage cells. The key for me is to be able to repair and replace those at a much higher rate. And that, to me, was a big difference. I wasn't stiff, I wasn't sore. Do I still get sore if I do a different workout or a longer race or something? Yes. But that doesn't last very long. It lasts hours instead of days. And for me, that was a huge find for me that I wasn't seeing before. And I think that the athletic field is, I mean, when you look at even the swimmers of the Olympic athletes, when they, you know, between first and second is a fingernail touch of the wall, you know, it's like they want to put in a quality workout, you know, back to back, where it's, can they recover from one day to another? And I know I'm repeating that recovery, but for athletes, that's just a component of that and the fueling of it.
Scott, could you drill into the science a bit? Tell us what's going on there that makes the cell do this.
Yeah, from a scientific point of view, and this is what's beneficial of my position is I get to see the studies firsthand, see what works, what doesn't work. And we've been talking about this the last few weeks is that Asea Redox works by absorption. That means that the molecule size is so small that it doesn't need a cell receptor to enter your cells. It can go right through the cell membrane. The reason why that's important and why that helps you with different athletic performance is because it has a cascading effect. What that means is the cells that are needed are the ones that are signaled. And when we talk about redox signaling being a transfer of electrons, electrons are just like us individually, meaning that they have energy and they want to go to the lowest point of energy. Just like each one of us, we would rather sit on the couch than go out and do something. That's what an electron wants to do. It wants to go from energy to non-energy. And so with the Asea Redox and that ability to absorb, it is a non-targeted response, meaning that it doesn't know where it's going to go till it gets inside your body. That's the redox potential of the product. And so what the product does when you take it, you're absorbing it, and it's trying to find where that electron transfer needs to happen. And a lot of times your body's going to say, hey, this is what's not happening. These are the cells that need to be repaired. And so from maybe a physiological standpoint, that's how it's working. It's non-targeted response. And so it's going to where it needs to go. And that is really the amazing part of this product that makes it very, very different. And in our labs, we test molecules at parts per million, and we can also test at parts per billion. And that's actually how the product works. It's absorbed. And I don't know that a lot of people understand that that's how it works, but that cascading effect is key to going to the areas of your body that it needs cellular repair. And that's what's different, very different about this product. So from a scientific standpoint, that's how it works, and that's why it's different. And we're really just starting to understand that at a really deep level, and it will lead to additional studies on why it's doing what it's doing. But that's where we're at so far, is it's a bit absorption and the cascading effect of the signaling.
You know, from the science thing, one of the things I can't claim to be an athlete. I'm a great athlete watcher, and every once in a while I'll go exercise. But that's one of my weaknesses. But you know, we joke kind of tongue in cheek that you could drink Asea and sit on the couch and eat Cheetos and watch football and claim to exercise. And there really is some physiological, you know, things going on there. You know, we've got such a thing that I term anyway, the redox lifestyle, because everything that we do in life that is related to lifestyle, which is exercise and eating right and sleep and, you know, so on and so forth. The reason why it's healthy is because it's activating this redox landscape. And if we kind of reverse engineer wellness or recovery, you know, and say, well, we know where it went and we know that we've got better recovery. If we reverse engineer that and say, but what happens in the cell once those molecules, those electrons are absorbed into the cell, you know, what is it that actually turns on and expresses the genes that result in cleaning up the cell, you know, the DNA repair, the consumption of damaged proteins and recycling, and that enables me, you know, to get rid of the lactic acid and be able to move on. And basically that is a redox event. And the human body is designed that way with, we call them transcription factors, but you could think of them as redox switches, or think of the thermostat on your wall that senses the ambient, you know, condition or temperature of the room that you're in. If it gets too high or too low, there's a switch that flips, and an action that causes an action so that something happens to return the ambient conditions to your preset conditions that you want. And we call that in the body, we call that homeostasis or balance. And so the body is wanting to get and to be in homeostasis, But every once in a while, we challenge it. We create a slight bit of oxidation, a little bit of adversity, a little bit of stress. This muscle teardown, that we're speaking about, and it's those actions that are all living on this redox platform, this redox landscape, and the body actually on its own can make these redox molecules as well. And what we've got with Asea is simply the ability to replenish or to supply the cell with a mild amount of redox molecules that it can then use to activate these pathways, these genes, these processes that we were just reverse engineering, such that it can clean itself up and it can repair the DNA and it can restore and reset and repair and renew and recycle and so forth. And so on the science side, that's the part that's intrigued me immensely as I understand that science. And then I look at people like you that go out and actually, lift the weights and run the laps and go the distance. And then you come back and say, because the science works, I'm able to recover quicker because, in athletic or redox physiology jargon, we're glycogen sparing. We're actually initiating pathways that burn fatty acids first instead of glucose first or predominantly. And that's why we can spare the glycogen and we can decrease the lactate buildup in these cells that we then don't have to spend so much time in recover to be able to process. And so, just for those watching, there is an immense amount of grounding and foundation in this, what we call redox landscape, the entire width and depth of the cell that impacts your athletic performance. And everybody out there is like, Shawn, it's like, this is kind of a secret maybe, was like, we don't want to tell our competitors because it would give them a leg up on the race as well. But heck, we're willing to let that go, but that's kind of the science behind what this recovery thing is all about. Scott, could you address? I know there may be some people that watch that wonder, as a supplement, is this something that's going to get us in trouble? We've got banned ingredients all over the place, and you can't be in really high level competition if you're like trying to get what would be an unfair advantage. Biochemically. Could you address that?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things we did a couple of years ago was we got the certification of what's called NSF Sport for the production facility, the Redox Center. And that certification is a certification that no banned substances are used at our facility. There's also additional testing called the WADA testing that's done at like kind of an Olympic level. That's actually for products where you're testing specific ingredients. And so what we did is get the certification on the facility. So it guarantees that no banned substances are used at our production facility. And so it's safe for athletic use. And that's always a question. We just even last week, there's a football club in England that wants to use Asea Redox with their players. And so what we have to do is sometimes we'll do additional testing to show that there's no banned ingredients, because on athletic performance, that's a strict regulation, is banned substances. So we're safe there. And
so what you're saying is that we can use Asea Redox, and even if a person was, tested on site or a urine analysis or however they do that they would not have an issue with this.
That's exactly right. And remember, we're just getting the body to do what it does naturally. And you talked about this homeostasis, this balance, and that's the balance between reduction and oxidation. And that's happening all the time in our body. So we're not adding anything in there other than electron transfer, the energy that you need to make your cells do what they're supposed to do at its optimum level. And so that's what's great about our product, is there would be no banned substance there.
So many years ago, when this was starting, there was a gateway study done at a university level. Dr. David Neiman. Scott, could you take a minute and summarize what he found? What was the significance of his study? And he wasn't studying sick people; he was studying athletes, and so that's an interesting concept, because of the double blindedness of how he did that. But what was that, and why does that matter?
Well, the study was athletic performance, and it was with actual athletes. So it wasn't, sometimes those studies can be jaded because they're just taking different people from the general population, or a lot of times at a university level, it'll be university students. You don't know if they're athletically inclined or they're working out on a regular basis. The Neiman study was a little different, is that it used known athletes and increased their athletic production. So a very valuable study, but as you talked about, that's a gateway study. It gives us an idea of what's going on, and continued research is needed. Most of our studies, that's what we're doing. We're doing gateway studies where we're getting an idea of what do we need to do next based on that study. So that's really was the significant difference with the Neiman study, was using known athletes and people that were already in physically good condition. It would be one thing to use people that weren't very athletically inclined or very fit, but that was the biggest difference with his study.
Yeah, Shawn, do you want to comment on that study from your perspective? Like, what stood out to you?
What stood out to me, well, actually, what Scott told us a few minutes ago stood out to me when you think about athletes. And that was that the redox molecules are going to areas that it's needed. Meaning, for an athlete, when you go to work out and then your body's crashed, so you fatigued your body out, knowing that those molecules are now going to go to the area where you need to rebuild and replace and build up your endurance. That I don't know, that the light just went on, because that's it right there. So the study, with what you're saying with Dr. David Neiman working with athletes, is he actually fatigued the athletes, and then they were taking the redox molecules on a consistent basis. They were taken in the morning and in the evening, and they were getting the results. And the results were they were recovering at a much higher rate. And what also stood out to me is that Dr. David Neiman was saying that we were actually burning free fatty acids. And that was a fuel that any athlete, doesn't matter if you're a weightlifter or if you're an endurance athlete or a weekend athlete, to be able to tap into that free fatty acids as your fuel source is a big, it's like, I tell people, is like, you can drive a Ferrari, but if you put sugar water in the Ferrari, it's not going to work. But if you put premium gas in it, it's going to work. That's what it's made for. So athletes are always trying to find out, they're a fine-tuned machine, and trying to getting that type of reaction in the body after they fatigued it is a big game changer right there for athletes that I'm seeing. So the free fatty, sparing the muscle glycogen and using free fatty acids, and then now knowing, as Scott, pointed out minutes ago, to know that the redox molecules are actually going to the area that it's needed. So if I go out and work out and run a long distance and then come back in and my body's been fatigued and been tapped into, knowing that makes sense. That's why I can go out and push the limits, and then be able to take redox molecules. I usually take about 20 minutes after a hard workout, and then I start feeling that recovery. That's the key component, is that it's going right to the area where I need as an athlete to rebuild and replace so that I can perform.
So let me come at this from, again, a non-athlete, just more from a science side. And let's paint the picture of if you weren't taking any supplemented redox molecules. What happens in the body when a person exercises or fasts? And the principle here underneath all this, and this is one thing that's so intriguing to me, is that if I were to not eat, if I went into a fasting mode, or if I were to extensively exercise, you ask the question, well, what's happening in the body? Well, I'm using up my available glucose. So whatever glucose is in my body or in my muscles or in my liver is going to be burned. And then the stored glucose that we call glycogen is then going to be accessed and it's going to be used up. And if I continued to fast, if I continued to exercise, eventually the glucose, the available glucose to be burned, metabolized, creating energy is going to be getting less. It's going to be depleted. And so the body, the cell cannot not burn something, because that's what death is about if I quit burning anything. And so the body, the cell says, well, we're going to have to flip. We're going to have to flex. We're going to have to metabolically shift to burn fatty acids. We call those free fatty acids, and they come largely from triglycerides, which are three fatty acids held together with a glycerin molecule. As the body, it gets the signal that it needs more energy in the cell, more of a fuel source, because there's no glucose around. It breaks the triglycerides down, creates free fatty acids, and now those become burning or combusted or metabolized in the cell. The byproduct of that is ketones. And so this has become a real popular thing in today's culture, is everything ketones or ketosis or keto diet. And basically that just surrounds the idea of low glucose in the bloodstream. But what's happening physiologically is when the body flexes or goes through this metabolic flexible shift to burning free fatty acids, there's an array of things that happen in the body that activate all these pathway genes that we talked about earlier, that create health, that turn on cell defense and cell renewal processes. And so when I saw this study that we've been talking about, this gateway study with Dr. Neiman, where he used Asea in conditioned athletes and found a metabolomic shift where they went from predominant glucose metabolism to predominant free fatty acid metabolism in Krebs cycle, that was very intriguing to me, because it means that we can do things to induce the body. I'm not going to use the word trick, because these are sound physiological principles. But to me, it highlights the power of a replenishment of redox signaling molecules that create the same or mimicked situation that I would get to just by not eating or by exercising heavily. I can replenish my body with these molecules and achieve much the same flexibility or flip or shift in the source of fuel that I'm burning inside my cell. And again, that's, to me, an explanation of why everything we've been talking about is healthy. Why does it upregulate, anti-aging genes? Why does it upregulate longevity genes, cellular renewal genes, autophagy genes? There's thousands of these redox sensitive pathways that become activated where that redox switch turns on in response to this cellular condition that we get to through exercise, fasting, lifestyle, and now through the supplementation or the replenishment of a redox signaling molecule. So as I look at your story, what you're talking about, Shawn and Scott, and putting this together at the cell level, we supplement with Asea redox signaling molecules, and we're doing what the cell would otherwise and is doing when we biooxidatively up the game in the mitochondria and make it produce more redox signaling molecules. So these are these are similar to what the cell is using. They're identical in that regard. And to me, that's where athletics and cellular health come together, and it explains the why and even the how. And so that's kind of my input there. Again, I'm the non-athlete, but from a redox biology point of view, we're talking real science here, and we've seen it in some of these initial studies. And frankly, Scott, I can't wait to see some larger scale stuff come at us where we can, even be more definitive in understanding exactly what's going on with those electrons.
Well, I think Shawn will let us do a study on him. I'm sure
There you go.
do that. It's pretty impressive that Shawn's actually better in his 60s than he was in his 50s. So that is very, very impressive.
Shawn, do you have a medal count before and a medal count after? I mean, I saw you at a picture one time, and it's like when you got on Asea, something changed.
Yeah, so before getting on Asea, I had raced about 150 races and placed in probably maybe 8 or 9. And then since being on Asea in the last 12 years, if God willing, tomorrow's race goes well, I will have 70 gold medals and 4 silvers. So I raced 74. It'd be 74 times I raced on Asea, and every race I raced, I've either been first, and then the second on 4 of those races. So tomorrow I'm going for my 70th gold medal, being on Asea.
That's amazing. So before you were, I remember looking at one of your stories that you told. You talked about how much like ibuprofen you were taking. Like it would like just kill you, these races, which is why you spent 2 or 3 days in recovery. But talk to me about ibuprofen and how that affects recovery and blood flow and your discomfort, et cetera, and the race.
Well, Costco loved me because I would buy ibuprofen at bulk price to live off it before getting on Asea. And I was so sore that I was always taking ibuprofen. But then I started looking at what ibuprofen actually does in your body. And what it actually does is you want blood to go to the area where you're sore so that your body can recover, get the nutrition to the muscle fiber. And what ibuprofen actually does is it tricks the body to say you're really not in pain. And so the blood doesn't really go to that area. And so you have a lack of blood flow to the area where you need nutrition for muscle fiber rebuilt. And so I was taking, 800 milligrams of ibuprofen, at least twice a day. So, at least once a day, if not twice a day. And that was, didn't go good with my digestive system and things like that. But I can tell you that in the last 12 years, I've never taken ibuprofen since being on Asea. Never taken it ever. Never taken any pain medication, never took anything. I just, like Scott said, I up my dosage. I mean, I take it 3 times a day because that's what works for me. And it's, I take it in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. And then I also have a routine before I do a race of taking Redox molecules and then the renewed also. But yeah, I was living off it. And to think about what it was doing internally to me, it was destroying my body internally. So it definitely, can I say that Asea saved my life? In more ways than one, yes.
Scott, I'd like to ask you the last question here. Maybe you could comment on it and then maybe give us your final comments here as we close this out. As a weightlifter, this issue of muscle degradation, muscle building, where do you see that? I mean, because that's all I hear about out there in the world. Again, I'm the uninformed guy here, but they're always talking about all these other supplements that you need these special ingredients. But what impact does Redox have on your ability to actually build muscle versus the other side?
I think it's key just on any athletic performance, and especially as men, as we get older, our testosterone drops. And testosterone is a key in building muscle and maintaining muscle mass. As we get older, it's going to decrease at somewhere between 1% and 3% per year, your output of testosterone. And so when we talk about gene regulation as a concept and a principle of redox signaling, that's where muscle building is going to come into play. And really what we're actually trying to do as we get older is not so much build new muscle, is we're trying to maintain what we've gained over the years. And so that's really for me been the biggest thing, is that to be able to maintain strength and muscle mass. And it's primarily through the gene regulation that we're talking about as a redox principle. And I think that's, for me, that's what we've seen. I think that's why you're seeing Shawn able to produce the results he has at an older age, is because he's able to maintain the muscle function. And that's what we're trying to do. So part of that is staying active. The other part is having something that's signaling in the right place so that those cells are behaving the way that they need to. And one thing that we maybe missed, Shawn touched on a little bit, is how important Renew 28 is in this. We're talking about circulation of blood to certain areas of soreness and for recovery, joints, which, you get joint pain due to inflammation. This all goes back to this balance, this redox homeostasis. And when we get imbalance, that's when we get pain. When we get sick, that's from imbalance. When we have things that happen in our body, it's imbalance. And this is really a key supplementation that's beyond, hey, I'm going to take some extra creatine, or I'm going to have protein at certain times of the day and change my diet and do these type of things. Those are more tricks. And one thing you'll see especially with strength training, there's a big difference between being strong and being large. And when you're large, you're just trying to put a lot of blood to a certain muscle in a short amount of time. And so you're not really having functional strength. As we get older, we want to have functional strength. Yeah, it's good. It's nice to look good and walk on the beach and feel confident with what you're putting out there. But it's also important to have functional strength. So we're not trying to trick the muscles or anything else. We're just trying to keep them strong so that we can live our everyday lives, have some fun on the weekends or when we're not working and we're traveling, doing different things. And so for me, that's been the biggest takeaway is making sure I can keep my body strong, making sure that we can work out on a regular basis and get the recovery we need by having good quality sleep. And my experience with the Redox cell signaling supplement is that's exactly what's happening. And we're able to get the electron transfer, the cell signaling to the areas that need it. And that's what I would encourage everybody to do. If you're not exercising, get out there and do it. You can watch television and watch the big game, put a stationary bike there as well, do something, but every single day, try to do something, even if it's just a little bit, even if it's taking a walk, even if it's getting up and stretching and doing whatever you need to do. And that's really going to be the key for anyone. Just keep doing it. If you need to take a break, just don't take a break too long. Right. And stay after it. And that's really been the key. And that's usually what I encourage people. The other thing is don't buy exercise equipment if you're not currently exercising. I see that, and they wind up being clothes hangers in people's homes. So if you're a regular workout person and you do that, that's great. If you're like Shawn and myself, where we feel the need to do it, we don't have a good day unless we do it, then I would encourage you to get in that habit. But we're all about health and wellness and improving people's quality of life. And that comes in many areas. And exercise is just one of those keys. So I love, Lee, when you say a Redox lifestyle. I agree with that 100%. Yes.
Shawn, any final comments?
Well, a couple of things. One is what I also found out by being on Redox molecules is that my heart rate is lower during a workout than it was before getting on the Redox molecules. So that's another key component for athletes. If you can have a lower heart rate when you're working out and have the same power output, you're going to perform at a higher level. And so I'm a person that follows my heart rate, and I can actually run a same course and know what my heart rate was before and after. And, if I'm having, and that's how I kind of determine if I'm having a tax my body out too much, my heart rate goes up and I get it down. So with Redox molecules, at age 62, my heart rate is lower in the same races that I did when I was in my 30s, 40s, and 50s. So that's been a huge difference for me. The other thing, and I don't know, Scott, or you can address this, but when I take my Redox molecules in the morning, I instantly become hungry. And I think if I remember right, it's because of that energy transfer. Because I take it and all of a sudden I'm starving to death. And so I don't know if you guys can address that, but I'm assuming it's because of the transfer of electrons from one.
That's interesting you say that, Shawn, because I experience exactly the same thing. Because I'll take my Redox right after a workout, and I get very hungry very quickly. So I never had put that together. Maybe Dr. Lee could tell us physiologically what's happening, but I have the exact same experience.
Well, these are miracle molecules, and I want to thank both of you for, being willing to spend some time, with us. My final comments is that Redox is responsive, And that's different than nutrition. And we're not saying that this replaces nutrition. You still need to eat right, and you still need vitamins and enzymes and collagen and all the things in our normal diet. But everything that we eat from a nutritional point of view is basically top loading in the body. And that nutrition isn't responsive. It's active, it's redox active, but it's not responsive. And that's the role of redox signaling molecules and these redox switches that it's playing with in the cell, is it knows what's going on and it knows how to fix the problems as we go forward. Well, I want to thank each of you, Shawn and Scott, for joining together with us, and hopefully this video will be helpful to athletes who are wanting to know what is redox signaling molecules and how does it impact my physical exercise and my performance and so forth. I would say to all those watching, if this has been inspiring and you're not using them at the present time, I would encourage you to contact the person who invited you to watch this video or who spoke with you about Asea Redox, and get some more details. I'll put some links below, but with some of the extra athlete-related videos that we have available from the company, that you can kind of drill deeper into some of what we've talked about. But again, I thank you for watching, and I hope that everybody here has great health for the rest of their life, because this is about redox signaling. Thank you again. Thank you all.